But why is he a genius?
He's a genius because he did 5-MeO DMT for 30 days straight and wrote a manifesto about reality and essentially surpassed like every spiritual teacher that has ever lived.
Really?
Like he surpassed
Anything?
Buddha. Yeah, he surpassed like a lot of, gurus and other spiritual teachers. He went farther than they did. So I'm like, okay, I would say this guy's a legit genius.
Okay, so like when does someone get to be called a genius?
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I was reading this thing the other day and they called this guy like a creative genius because he like reorganized his desk drawers.
What?
I know, right? Like since when is that genius?
Yes.
And it got me thinking about this whole idea of genius.
Yeah.
You know, like what does it even mean? And is it something you're born with or can you like learn it?
It's a really good question.
And actually it kind of ties into this whole AI thing that you're into.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Like, can a machine be a genius?
Right.
So you sent in this conversation between these two AI people, Carlos and Casey, I think it was.
Sure.
And they're arguing about this AI prompt writer
Yes.
and whether or not this person is like seriously brilliant.
Right.
Because they wrote this one specific prompt. And it's not just any prompt. From what I understand, this thing is like next level.
Yeah, Carlos seemed really impressed.
He was like over the moon about it.
Yeah, he was saying how this prompt gets AI to think in this really different way, like using math and physics concepts to solve problems.
So like, what does that even look like?
Well, he used this example of using quantum mechanics to figure out the best delivery route or something.
Really?
Yeah, like getting the AI to think not just outside the box, but like outside the whole realm of normal thinking.
Wow.
But, Casey wasn't convinced.
No, she wasn't having it.
Not at all. She's like a total measurement person. Like you're either a genius or you're not.
Right. She kept mentioning that guy.
Ilya Sutskever.
Yeah. Him, like, he's the gold standard.
For her, he is pure genius,
Measurable.
brilliance,
And this prompt writer.
just lucky in her book.
It's just a fluke.
Basically.
Interesting.
Yeah. And, that's a pretty traditional way to think about intelligence. Like it's all about how much raw brain power you're born with.
Yeah, like you can't really change it.
Exactly. And while IQ tests can be useful, they definitely don't tell the whole story.
Totally. And that's where Carlos came in with a different perspective.
Right. With the multiple intelligences.
Yeah, like what about all those other ways of being smart?
Exactly. He was talking about dancers and musicians and people who can just connect with anyone.
He even said something about breakdancing.
He did. He was like, what about the genius of a breakdancer?
I love that.
Yeah, he really challenged the idea that genius only exists in certain fields.
Yeah, and it made me think, like, could you have a genius gardener?
Totally.
Or a culinary genius?
Absolutely.
There's so many ways to be brilliant.
I think so too.
So are we saying it's better to be lucky than smart then?
Well, it's more complicated than that, I think.
Yeah, because Carlos didn't just stop there, did he?
No, he had even more to say.
He brought up those personality things, right?
Yeah, the big five.
Like if you're high in certain traits, is that its own kind of genius?
Exactly. Like maybe a certain combo of those traits is what really sets some people apart.
Like you could be a super collaborator if you're really agreeable and also organized.
Right. Or maybe you're incredibly open to new experiences and also really emotionally stable.
So you could be like an entrepreneurial genius or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just about slapping labels on people.
Right.
It's about understanding how these core parts of your personality, how you interact with the world, how you handle your emotions,
Yeah.
all of that plays into what you're capable of achieving.
So maybe instead of just one thing, it's more like a recipe for genius.
Yeah, like a dash of IQ, a sprinkle of the right kind of intelligence, and then the personality to bring it all together.
I like that. A genius recipe.
Right.
Okay, so say you've got all that going for you. Does that mean you've got it made?
Well, that's where it gets even more interesting. Because both Carlos and Casey agreed on one thing.
What's that?
Genius doesn't always equal a perfect life.
Yeah, they mentioned that Iris person, right?
Yeah, they were saying how even with her off-the-charts IQ, she's had a lot of struggles.
Like anxiety and stuff.
Yeah, in social situations, even getting kicked out of gyms because she didn't fit in.
Seriously.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, actually.
Makes you think about that whole nature versus nurture debate.
Totally. Like, is there a price to pay for being wired differently?
It's like that old saying, it's lonely at the top.
Maybe.
But seriously, though, what does the research say about all this?
It's complicated. There's definitely a link between high intelligence and certain mental health challenges.
Like you're more prone to anxiety and depression and stuff.
It seems that way. but it's not a guarantee. And then you have to factor in the environment.
Right. Like if you're a kid who learns differently, do you have the support you need?
Exactly. Because if you're always seen as different, it's easy to feel isolated.
That makes sense. So it's not just about how your brain is wired, it's about how the world responds to you.
Exactly. And that actually brings us to Carlos's work,
Okay.
which is pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
Okay. Tell me more.
He's building AI with personalities.
Wait, really?
Yeah, like he's not just trying to make AI that's smart. He's giving it a whole inner world.
Like emotions and stuff?
Kind of.
Yeah.
He's using this system based on Jungian psychology.
I've heard of Jung.
Yeah, so he's using these archetypes and concepts to create AI that doesn't just process information, but responds to it in a nuanced, human-like way.
So it's not just about can the AI solve a math problem? It's about does it like prefer Mozart or something?
Exactly. It's about making AI feel more relatable, more like it has its own unique perspective.
So he's basically trying to make AI more human.
In a way, yeah, like instead of just focusing on pure intellect, he's trying to build AI that has that kind of depth and complexity that we usually associate with being human.
Which is interesting because we started off talking about genius, right?
Right. And whether an AI could ever be considered a genius.
Exactly. And now we're talking about AI that might have opinions on Mozart.
And get hangry.
It's crazy, but also kind of cool.
It really makes you think about what we value in intelligence.
Totally. Like, are we moving toward the place where we care about AI's ability to connect with us on an emotional level?
It's possible. I mean, look at what happened with character. AI.
Yeah, with the chatbots.
Right? They were all about creating AI with distinct personalities, and Google just bought them for a fortune.
So it's not just some niche thing anymore.
Definitely not. It seems like people really want AI that feels more human, more relatable.
It's almost like AI is forcing us to rethink what it means to be intelligent in the first place.
Totally. Like we always put so much emphasis on logic and reasoning, but what about all those other
The
things?
creativity.
Yeah, and emotional intelligence, social intelligence, being able to understand and connect with other people.
Those are all really important too.
Absolutely. And maybe as we create AI that reflects those qualities back to us, it'll help us to value them more in ourselves and in each other.
I like that idea. So it's not just about making AI more human, it's about what we can learn from that process.
Exactly.
Wow, this has been a trip. We started with this question about an AI prompt writer, and now we're talking about the future of intelligence itself.
That's what I love about these deep dives. You
Mhm.
never know where they're going to take you.
You really don't. So next time someone drops the G word in conversation, I hope they remember it's not just about having a high IQ or being good at math.
There are so many ways to be brilliant.
And maybe even a few ways to be a genius.
Maybe so.
This has been awesome. Thanks for taking this deep dive with me.